In this video, we're going to continue working with the credenza model that we modeled in a previous video. I'm going to take you step by step through the process of unwrapping this now so that we can apply a wood grain material to it. So the first thing I would do before I began is I do want to find a reference image to look at, to keep in mind with my unwrapping. Since we are working with a wood grain, that's really important so that we know which way the wood grain is supposed to go. And I found this that I can use as reference. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. The only major difference would be the legs on it, but I can use other reference images for that if I needed to. But I can, get pretty close to this one, and it has some details on it that are useful. So I can see a lot closer which way that wood grain is going on here, and that's going to really help me with the way that I unwrap this. Wood grain is really important. It's one of the pitfalls I see on student work is they won't take the direction of the wood grain into account, so they end up with something that looks a little bit amateur. We might have to do a little bit of model cleanup, but we'll get to that. Maybe in the end, I'll talk about some ways to improve the look of the model based on how it's modeled right now. That could help us with our unwrap. So the first thing I want to do is I do want to open up our UV editor, which is located underneath UV and UV editor. I do use this a lot, so I made a little custom shelf button for me so that I could easily open it. And if we take a look at this, it is a very ugly unwrap because this was just made with a couple primitives extruded out, so it's not going to be pretty. We could click the checkerboard pattern up here to look at it. There's a lot of distortion, things are not going the right way, and if we're not too satisfied with this one, we could add our own checkerboard pattern to this. You might prefer it, you might get some more information out of it. And I'm just going to do that by creating a quick material on it using that. It'll be a good way to show you how to do this. So I'm going to select my model, right click, assign new material. I'm just going to go ahead and use that Lambert. Once it is put on there, I need to find that Lambert material. So I'm going to go over here. And I'm just going to call this Credenza Matte. I'm then going to locate the color area, and I do usually by habit like to bump this up to white. And then I'm going to click the little checkerboard pattern right here. I'm going to find File right here, and it puts it a file node on there so that I can add a image to it. I do have to come over and click the folder and locate my image, and I like to use sometimes this one since it can give me a little bit more information. Sometimes it's easier for me to tell where things are on here. I can see it. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I always dock that by accident. If I want to see it on the unwrap, let me reselect my model. That is this button right here. If for some reason you do not see it on here, make sure this circle with the fully checkered circle is clicked on in your viewport, not this one, this one. Or if this one's on, you got to turn it off. So it should just be the little blue cube and the fully checkerboarded circle. So we see we have a lot of work to do. There are a couple methods that we could go about. I'm going to kind of go with a more straightforward approach since we do have, it's very angular. So we could probably get away with doing this approach. This is not going to be how you would unwrap more complex objects or organic objects. For the videos for next week when we talk about actually using UV space, I'm going to go into some more techniques that might show you a slightly different way. But for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of my UVs. See that? And I just did that by doing my UV island select. And I'm going to select them all just by clicking and dragging. Back over here, I'm going to go to UV. I'm going to choose automatic. I would recommend, if you haven't had the opportunity to try out what some of these automatic unwraps do, I would recommend kind of going through them and seeing what effect they have on your model. But we can quickly do an automatic, and what that does is it kind of pulls our model apart into a bunch of pieces. And it's very common for me to see students who do that and then they think they're done. Like, oh, it's done. No, this is a really awful unwrap. This is the start of your unwrap. It is not the finish of your unwrap. There's a lot of issues with this. And we're going to get into using UV space in the next week, but we don't really have much control over our flow of our UVs, you know, where they're taking up space. So if I ever see unwraps like this, you're not going to get credit for this because it took basically 2 seconds to do this. So this is not a UV that's going to get you much credit. What we need to do is we need to create unified UV islands that flow together, that are, you know, connected over here. So for instance, I'm going to want this top piece connected to the side piece so that we can make sure that the wood grain flows nicely from one piece to the other. We need to make sure that the side pieces are connected as well with that top piece so that it looks nice. So this is a lazy unwrap and is not acceptable. So I'm going to just start to go through kind of systematically and fix this. Let me kind of fix my screen a little bit. I need to get this more. I do recommend working with 2 monitors when you unwrap, where you keep your model on one screen and put your unwrap on the other screen. It is a much better workflow. Oops, let's do this. So I'm gonna squish this up a little. I want to have this over here so that we can see this a little better. I don't need much information out of this one though. So I'm going to usually keep the modeling toolkit closed. I might just turn it on to do a quick selection if I need to. But ultimately, we don't need too much in there right now. So let's begin. I'm going to start with probably my top piece, and I'm going to try to find pieces that should be connected to it. So I'm going to use my UV selection. I'm going to select this top piece. I'm going to, well, actually, let's do this. I'm going to move these kind of out of the way and use this central one kind of as my staging area. So I'm going to select them, get my move tool, and kind of slide them out of the way. Then I'm going to select my top piece and pull it back over here. So I do have my wood grain material completed that I do plan to use. It looks like this, so it's something I probably want to keep in mind. This is the wood grain material, where the wood grain is going horizontal. So I can already start to position my unwraps, my UV islands better, to keep that in mind. So I don't want it to going this way. I'm going to want it going this way. So I need to kind of, remember that I need to kind of make sure my wood grains are positioned like that. So let me grab the side piece because I do want to connect it. So I'm going to come in here, select this edge, right click, cut sew, move and sew. I do need to connect these edges too, so I'm going to select that, and I can just, for that one, do a simple sew. And I do have a shortcut key for that up here too. You can see I made my own little shortcut bar, very similar to how we can do over here, so that I can kind of speed up the process. I don't like these legs connected. If this was an actual created by wood, you know, in a workshop, we would not have this be one massive piece with the legs connected. So I'm going to come in with and grab those feet pieces. And I'm going to make these their own UV islands that I can fix later. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-X to detach those. The other way you could do that is if you right click, do Cut Sew, Create UV Shell. So I got this down. I need to grab this other side. So I'm just going to click here. I can even click the little one. That would actually be a little bit more efficient. Do a right click, Cut Sew, Move and Sew. And then I just need to sew that one together. I'm going to then break these feet off because I don't want them attached. Control-Shift-X. We're not too worried about those yet. So let's move this kind of up here. We're done with that. We can see that we have all of this nicely unwrapped, and our wood grain will go smoothly on that side, on all the sides. Might as well do this back. Let's do this back piece real quick. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know if I have any reference images of the back. Let's see if they show it anywhere on here. I can infer some information though. It's probably going to be similar to the bottom where the wood grain is going this way. So we want to make sure that ours is going that way as well. So let me grab this. I'm going to rotate it. And I don't want the feet on the bottom. Again, that's not how it would be created. It would look really strange if the wood grain just kind of flowed and was consistent. So I'm going to grab those feet, Control-Shift-X, detach them, and our back is unwrapped. So that's pretty easy. We got the top, the sides, and the back. Now we're going to need to tackle the front, which is going to be a little bit more difficult. Let me turn this off real quick. I don't want to see this. There we go. So this front piece, this one is going to be a little more complicated to make sure that we get the wood grain flow correct. Honestly, I don't really like how it's going to turn out. It'll be fine for a first unwrap. I might show you at the end some ways that we could clean this up a little bit better. But if we take a look at our model, we can see that, or I'm sorry, our reference, usually the wood grain is going to flow kind of this way on one, and then, you know, follow kind of like the flow where it should be horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. We're kind of stuck with what we have, so we have to kind of make some good choices. So I'm going to kind of do it along with the top piece, where this whole top piece is going to be horizontal, and then this side piece here will be the vertical piece. So I need to pull these apart. So I'm going to grab those top polys, Control-Shift-X to pull them apart. I'm going to rotate them the right way. And you know what I might as well do? Since this is associated with that top, I should just attach them so that the wood grain looks natural and there's no weird change in, you know, the pattern of that wood grain, because it would flow from one to the other. So let me refine where that top is. And let's attach this to the top just so we can keep that look consistent. So if I hover over this edge, I see that this edge is associated with that edge. So I'm just going to come over here and select it on this side so I can do my move and sew. and that piece should move over there. I do then need to clean this up. And as a hint, if you skip every other one, it will naturally sew that one in between since you have to attach it. There you go. Then the side one, I'm going to attach to this side piece so it keeps the mesh flow. And I'm going to decide that I'm going to actually grab that extra little, this is going to go with this side. Control Shift X. I'm going to then do my cut sew, move and sew. Let's fix up that little piece. I do have this little foot here. It needs to get out of the way anyway, because we're going to deal with those later. Let's deal with this side now. I need to grab these faces, Control Shift X. Do my move and sew. We have this all unwrapped now, and the wood grain will flow really nice. That leaves us with this little cross in the middle. There's not too much we can do about this. Like, there's no real place to attach these two since it's kind of its own thing. We do want to make sure we orient these correctly. So the first thing I do want to do is grab this leg and detach it. Control Shift X to detach it, and I'm going to pull this polygon off right here too. We want the wood grain to go horizontal here. It would look strange to go horizontal here. So we're going to have to detach it and rotate it the correct way. So I'm just going to detach it, Control Shift X again, and rotate this. So let's turn on that texture. And we can see that we have it pretty nice. So these pieces are done for now. Let's grab those and let's move them out of the way again. There we go. Not too bad. This is, in the grand scheme of things, we have a lot already unwrapped. We just need to focus now on some of the finer ones, which are going to be the feet, the doors, and then those door handles. These feet are super easy. Let's take care of them real quick. It's all of these little pieces down here. So I'm going to just start with, I'm going to just move these up into here. I'm going to get my edge select. I'm just going to start coming into here and doing, I'm going to select an edge, right click, do my move and sew. Just kind of consistently through all these. I know they're four-sided, so I will just stop. Oh no, where'd it go? Sometimes it does that. It'll pop over to where the other side is. Up here. These are probably all of those too. Let me grab these. Move them into my work area. That's where it was. It's sort of like putting a puzzle back together. There might be slightly more efficient ways to do these at this simple of shape, but this is a good practice of using these tools. 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. And last, these are the bottoms underneath. We can just attach those as well. Two more. Did I miss that one? How did I miss that one? Cut, sew, move, and sew. There we go. All right, those bottom legs are now attached. So I'm gonna move these now kind of out of the way. All right, what do we have left? Let me turn this off. Sometimes it's hard to see. All we have left to do now are those doors and those handles. We do have the little insets as well. And we would have to decide where we want to attach those. I'll probably attach them to the frame up here when we get to them. That seems like the most logical location for them, since it should probably follow the wood grain of this versus the door. So let's work on these doors. These should be pretty easy. So I'm going to grab one. And honestly, I think all we need to do is make sure that they're oriented the right way. These should be unwrapped pretty well as far as stretching goes. So if we look at our reference image, which way does the wood grain need to go? It needs to go up and down. But notice too, if we have a bit of a bevel, it kind of should follow that flow of, you know, vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal. And our doors do have a bit of a bevel in this piece. So these main pieces should have the wood grain up and down, but we're going to make sure that that bevel is going the correct way. So I'm going to grab these, Control-Shift-X to detach them. And let me just double check, wood grain goes up and down. So these are going to go the right way. Since our wood grain is horizontal, these are correct. So let's move these over here. Next is going to be working with this frame. So I do need to kind of detach these. I could probably keep these center ones together. That should be fine. But the rest of them are going to get detached. So I'm going to grab these, Control-Shift-X, and I'm going to rotate these. It's fine if these stay attached. I don't know if they, nope, they're not, and that's okay too. Either way, we just need them to all be facing horizontal so we can get the wood grain correctly. I need to find these. So we got this piece. Then we got this piece. Okay, these ones are all broken up already, so that's good. So I can then just come into here, do that move and sew, cut, sew, move and sew, and it popped it over there. That's fine. I'll show you where these are going. Over here. I'm going to just move all these over since I know I'm going to be working with these. I think this one doesn't need any more. Nope, this one's good. Okay. Move and sew. Move and sew. Let's find those ones that moved over. So it's this one. So we we gotta rotate them back. And we have those frames done. Let me move them up here with these. And then we just have to do this other door. So let's find it. Same process. I need to detach these faces, but they are oriented the right way already. I just need to work on this frame. So let me grab these. Control-Shift-X to detach. And let's reattach these back together. Move and sew. And let's just pop it over, I think right over here. Let's see. Yeah, those pieces are just over here. I'm sure there's a specific algorithm of when it determines if it stays where it actually is supposed to be or if it pops over to where the other one is. I thought it was supposed to be the one that you select is where it stays, but it doesn't seem to always do that. There we go. What I recommend to a lot of people is unwrapping can feel a little tedious. It is a good idea to maybe put on some music while you listen. You can easily, it's one of those kind of almost, once you get the process, almost like a Zen kind of zone out activity. I find it very enjoyable. So we got all that done. I think these are going to be those inner ones. Where is this one? So if I select one of these and I can't find it, I can always hit F on the keyboard and it should focus down in it. It is. You see, it's the sides of these. Okay. So I'll need to reattach it to this board. I moved it down. See, I moved it down here. By reattaching all of these pieces back to it themselves, this guarantees that the wood grain is going to flow nicely and it's not going to have any obvious kind of weird seams and breaks that don't seem natural. Yeah, these are all on these ones. So where is this one? Let me select these. I can see where it highlights. So up here. Let's attach it back up here. So I'm going to reselect this. Where are you? Probably the other side. There we go. So move and sew. Oh, come on. There we go. I think this is my bottom piece. That makes it easy. It's basically done. We just have to rotate it. Move it out of the way. And let's try to locate. I think this is, where are you? I think it's the, oh yeah, here we go. It's that inner one. And I mentioned before, I'm going to attach these not to the doors, but to these pieces up here. So I'm going to just shatter all these. I'm going to just grab those faces, hit Control-Shift-X to detach them. I know that these are going to be the same thing. So let me just grab those faces, Control-Shift-X to detach them. I'm going to pull this piece back down to work with. And I'm thinking, where are they? So here. Oh, these pieces aren't, okay. These are the undersides of this. I didn't even attach those yet, so we have a little bit more work to do. Okay. Where's this edge then? Okay. So it's just going to be reattaching these. Then I can come in and attach those. I have some here too. Who are you attached to? This is, oh, the bottom piece. Okay. Oh yeah, so we have a little bit of an indent here. So we have stuff attached to the bottom. Cut sew, move and sew. Let's sew that little seam up. Actually, I should just use my move and sew button right there. It'll go quicker. See that one? Then that's my sew button. I made those myself. You can make them the same way that you make your own custom shelf over here. Let's see what else. Okay, now these ones will attach here. We're wheedling our way through. There's only a couple more pieces. We just have to figure out who they are connected to. This looks like it's that inner piece right there. So we have to attach it to this one. Final couple, two more. This edge. Oh, there it is. You can see it highlighted. Guessing the other one is over here. There we go. All right. We have all of our main pieces unwrapped. Turn this back on. The last thing we need to do is unwrap our knobs. And we can just make these wooden knobs. I've seen wooden knobs on plenty of objects. And this is kind of a good example of where that automatic unwrap does not do a great job. We can see it kind of really shattered this, and it has some really ugly pieces. Like, that's not really a nice look to it. So, you know, an automatic unwrap on those is not going to be a really great starting point. So what I might do instead is try one of the other ones. So I'm going to select them. Actually, I just want to select one. So let me just select the whole thing. And I'm going to go to UV, and let's try the cylindrical one and see what happens with that one. So not quite the orientation I need. So let me rotate this one. Where is that rotate? Nope. So I don't use this one very often. It's going to take me a second. Hold on. So to activate the rotate, we have to click this little red T and it changes the gizmo. See that T? As I said, I don't really use this too often. And then we have to kind of locate the rotate tools in there, but then I can rotate this around. And we can see that we're getting a better unwrap with that, at least a little bit closer. Do you see that? It's not going to be perfect, but it might be a better starting position. So I'm going to accept that. And let's turn this map on to see what we're getting. So let me restate that. Oof. So it's okay, but that top is really kind of funky. So let's fix that top real quick. I'm going to just go ahead and select those vertices. We see it flatten them out. And then I'm going to go underneath UV and I'm going to do a planar map of just those. I'm going to click the little icon here though so I can adjust it. And what this will let me do is change the axis that it's on. So I think it's an x-axis I'm looking at. Nope, z-axis. There we go. I don't like how it kind of unevenly did this over here. It's going to drive me a little crazy. So let's fix this real quick. I'm going to grab these faces, Control Shift X. I'm going to reattach them. So let me show you something else. We can see that we're having a lot of distortion with this, and that's just the nature of, you know, the shape of this is we can't just have it be straight like this. This is again, sloppy. We want to minimize as much stretching as possible. So one thing we can do is we could come, I'm going to show you a new tool. This wouldn't work well on these because these are very hard edged, very straight. But if we have something a little bit more organic like this might help us get closer to our ultimate shape. And that is underneath the unfold. And it's these unfold and optimize tools. So I'm going to first save because sometimes this can crash Maya. So I recommend saving. I'm going to click unfold. And usually an optimize will help too, kind of straighten it out a little bit. And we can see what it did was it rotated it kind of like, you know, made it a little bit closer in shape. If I want to be really picky, and sometimes I am, for these rounder shapes, I'll probably split these to even reduce it even more. So I'll find like the halfway mark, Control Shift X, and I'll unfold and optimize this one. Same thing with this one. And we're getting an even better look to it. If this was a larger object, I would probably honestly do quarters. So I would split it again and have 4 pieces for this. But the knob is so small, we're not really going to notice. So I'm pretty happy with this. What I'll probably do though is reattach it here so that it stays with it, we don't lose it. So right now we are having an issue with this textile density. Do you see that? This is way too dense for this. So we need to get these a little bit closer. I'm not too worried about setting the final textile density yet. I just want to make sure that this gets closer to this so I can reattach it so that it stays with it. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of the target textile density I'm working with. So I'm going to select this one. Underneath transform, I'm going to then get its textile density. I'm going to come over here, select this one, and I'm going to set its textile density. And it should scale it to the correct size. I'm then going to just pick a side And I'm just going to reattach that just so I have this whole knob. It's a little bit easier to work with. It's way too big, but that's fine. Should I unwrap this one? The answer is no. This is not a good method to work with. These are identical pieces. So re-unwrapping this one and then these three, this is kind of a waste of time. What I would recommend instead is, you know, honestly, when you get a little bit more advanced, when you're 3D modeling this and you know that you're going to use these in multiple places, pop open that UV editor and unwrap it first during the modeling process. We're kind of starting with this already modeled, so I'm actually going to go back into here and let me turn off that texture real quick. I know this one's unwrapped, these are not. I'm going to delete these old ones and move this unwrapped one. It's going to be a lot quicker than trying to unwrap all three of them. So kind of a hint, once you do have these unwrapped, one of the nice things too is we can use this to easily select pieces. So if I go to my UV selection and select that island, I know the whole piece is selected. So if I go back, oops, select that UV island, sorry. Switch it back to face. Oh, come on. There we go. You have to have it both open. I just have that selected. I'm going to then come over here and I'm going to choose separate. And this will break my object. But notice this. I have my knob and I have the other pieces. So I can then come into here. Since I know, you know, these are a perfect model, one of the things I can do with this, I'm going to just snap these in by going to Edit Pivot, hold V. I'm going to move this pivot. I'm going to just pick kind of like an arbitrary vertice on here. Because then if I duplicate this, and if I slide this over, if I hold V, I'll just snap it directly on that surface. Same thing over there. Control D to duplicate. I'll get it a little bit closer. Hold V. Control D. Hold the V key and snap it in. I do want to make sure I delete those old ones because those are hiding under the surface and we don't want to keep them by accident. So I'm going to select those ones I just duplicated real quick, hit H to hide them. I'm then going to come in and I do need to delete these. Again, I'm going to go to my UV editor. I know that's what these pieces are. I can even just do a face select. Select those. I'm going to make sure to close this. The reason is I don't want to just, if I hit delete, notice it deletes the UVs, but these are still here. That's because I just deleted the UVs. I want to actually delete the polygons, so I need to make sure I am in this viewport like actively, and then I can just delete them. I can then turn these back on. And those are nicely unwrapped, the same exact way as this one. Let's reattach these all together. So first, I'm going to make sure that these don't have any weird kind of dependency issues. I'm going to select all of those. I'm going to click on the icon for them and slide them out from that group. I'm then going to select all of these and delete their history. Notice it does have an ugly name because it was associated with that group we did when we did that separate. But we can always fix that now when we combine these together. So I'm going to select them all. I'm going to hold Shift before I click Combine. so that I can make sure that when I merge these, it's going to merge it so that the pivot position is at the world origin, because that's what I want. I'm going to then hit apply. I do need to clean this up, so I'm going to hold shift and select all of those, delete the history, and we are back to a singular object. Let's rename that back to Credenza. Let's open that. Unwrap. And we can see that we have all our pieces. The downside, though, is that it is very strange with the textile density. These are way too big. Let me move them around so we can see all of those knobs. So we need to set this, and I have a specific textile density in mind with this. I want it to be a 10.24 on a 1024. So if I locate underneath tools, the textile density pixels per unit, I'm going to select all of my items. I'm going to set it 10.24 to 1024 and do a set, and it will scale them all up. If they get kind of all over the place, that's fine. I do tend to like to move them over. We can kind of corral them a little bit nicer. But since we are using a tileable, they don't need to necessarily stay in there because these are obviously way too big, so it's not going to work. But let's switch out that texture now from our UV checker to our actual wood grain. So I'm going to go underneath the attribute editor, and I'm going to find that credenza material I made. I'm going to, underneath color, I'm going to click this little button, and I want to change the image name because that's not the one that I want to use now. I have a wood grain already created that I'm going to then open, and it's going to apply it. So let me deselect this object. It's not looking, it's looking pretty good. I see one major issue though, is these feet. You see those? They should be going horizontal, vertical too. Kind of like this one. Like this one's correct. These ones are not. So let's locate those and fix them. That's this jumble of pile here. So let's grab these. And these are a little bit more organic. I can kind of eyeball rotate these. And that should be good. Let's see now. Hey, where are you? Oh, I'm sorry. I completely did these the wrong orientation. It's good. It's a good thing I checked. I don't want them that way. I want them that way. Put these over here. There we go. And all of our wood grain is going correct. If some of these kind of irritate you, we could always move them around to a different spot on our unwrap. So we can see it changing. And yeah, I know I mentioned I was going to talk about maybe finessing this a little bit more. The video is running a little bit long. I will probably do a small supplementary material. I'm sorry, a supplementary video to talk about if we wanted to make it just a little bit cleaner of an unwrap. What are some things we could keep in mind with fixing this? Hopefully you found this useful and you've worked along with it yourself. And I will have another video where we talk about maybe fixing these corners, so that bothers me. We'll fix and make a little bit more true to life.